Hello friends, and welcome back to Depression Quest. As the last video, what I'm going to say before I start is if you have depression or any sort of mental health that might cause a slight depression feeling, I would advise you not to watch this video at all, even though me, being a hypocrite myself, who has depression, I'm going to play this game. Right, so the last thing we did was talk to Alex about whether she's happy in this relationship or not, and it kind of got a bit like, it kind of didn't go according to plan. On top of that, we got a cat companion, so my cat's just arrived. So we're gonna continue. This is where we left off, so I'm gonna just continue from here. It is a breezy Sunday afternoon. You've allowed Amanda, an old friend from school that is in town for the weekend, to talk to you into the leaving house for coffee and catch up. You meet her in a small cafe and talk about what you've been up to since you've last seen each other, and you can't help but feel like they're a lot more accomplished and interesting than you are willing while listening to them talk about their life after school. When it's your turn to brief them on your activities, you feel anxious and ashamed and give a very abbreviated version. You try to talk about your job as little as possible, and you feel incredibly boring while you describe it, despite her expressing sincere interest in you and your life. Amanda has known you long enough to read your mood and tone of voice. She leans in to ask a question while gently touching your hand, a look of genuine concern on her face. What's wrong? Do you? Okay, so we can't suggest a change of location and confide in her honestly. Test the waters and open up a little, hoping she'll understand. Insist that nothing is wrong and change the subject. Defensively ask what she means by that. Notice that your hands are shaking. Test the waters a little bit. I think that might be easier. Though you find it hard to lay out how you're feeling lately to other people, you decide to test the waters on opening up to Amanda. She's always been easy to talk to, and you feel like it's possible that she might be understanding of what's been going on with you, even if you think it doesn't make sense sometimes. You begin to dance around the subject, dipping your toe into the pool to test the water. Surprisingly, she catches on quickly and is even able to guess what you might say next. She asks the right questions, leading you to elaborate on your emotional state. You're apologizing profusely the entire time, feeling like you're being obnoxious, and she reassures you that you are not burdening her. Amanda reveals to you that her mother suffers from clinical depression and that she has spent many nights talking her through very similar things. She mentions that therapy and medication have helped her tremendously and suggests you give it a try. You fight it and feel somewhat like a charity case, but she tells you that she'll get the number of her mother's therapist and email it to you as soon as she can. Afterward, conversation drifts back to small talk and shared hobbies, and you spend a pleasant afternoon together. For the rest of the day, you find yourself wondering if therapy or medication can really help you, if you have an illness or are simply complaining too much, and remember horror stories you've heard about antidepressants. You're not sure about what you'll do if she remembers to email you the number for the therapist, and you secretly hope that she'll forget about it so you can avoid dealing with it at all. Okay, I can see where this person's coming from. There are a lot of like horror stories or like bad stories that people have conjured up, like either whether it's actually something they've experienced with or someone that's just like Chinese whispers in a way that some person said something and then along the story it just gets changed, so it turns out to be like really horrible. Like, I don't know, antidepressants will make you grow a second right arm and people get scared and don't want to touch it. So that's not what antidepressants do, by the way. So I can understand that, and I can also understand the whole like not wanting to go to a therapist, because for some people I feel like that going through therapy might actually mean you're like admitting defeat, especially with going on medication. I was like that. Like, when I was first diagnosed with depression, I was like, okay, that's fine. I can like cope with this. I'll just have to do the right things and I should be like okay. Bearing in mind, I was only like 15 at the time when I was diagnosed, so obviously they didn't put me on medication. Yeah, that's right. No, medication until I was about like 18. I think my depression kind of started conjuring up when I was about 13, but then I didn't get diagnosed till 15 and then wasn't put on medication till I was about 18. The reason for it is because obviously from 13 to 15 they had diagnosed me with anxiety at this point, but I didn't know how to describe my down feeling, if that makes any sense, and I didn't want to seem like a burden or anything like that. So how I came across with it is that obviously once they actually was like, no, you know, this isn't normal, you're feeling these things because you have a mental illness, or it, obviously that's not how the conversation went, but just to like cut it down, they stuck me on therapy. So obviously I went to therapy, and for ages that actually like really sorted me out, and it was great. And then until I met my first boyfriend, after he cheated on me the first time okay, there's a long story to that one. After he cheated on me the first time, that kind of like took my depression to go downhill, because I was doing so well. They were like okay, if this really doesn't doesn't help you, then we'll put you on medication. Obviously then after I met my first boyfriend and the whole affair thing happened, that took my depression downhill. He cheated on me a second time, that even plummeted further. And then 3 years after still staying with him, it was just not a good relationship. It was very toxic, and it's difficult because obviously it's your first boyfriend, it's your first, you know, real relationship. You kind of don't want to leave it because you've got attachments to it and all the rest of it. But since being in my new relationship, I have felt so much better. Although saying that, halfway through my first relationship, I then did end up on medication. So to be fair, I don't know, like, and I can't just come off medication like that. It doesn't work that way. So it's going to be really hard if I did. And I feel like I'm rambling, and I did say this in the last episode as well, is I don't want to make this whole depression quest thingy all about my mental health and me. It's not. I'm just telling you what I have been through, and hopefully in some way it brings you, as someone who might also suffer from depression, comfort or something you can relate to. Again, depression doesn't affect everyone the same way. You have to remember that 100% when you're talking about mental health, is that it doesn't affect everyone the exact same way. So if someone is affected differently, you can't say that one of them doesn't have depression and one of them does by going some sort of like, you know, criteria. It doesn't work that way. Bless you. It's a glary sunny Monday, and one of the few days that your brother Malcolm is in town and free long enough for you two to actually see each other. You have a dental appointment that day, but you make plans for him to pick you up afterward. Your appointment takes a little longer than expected because your dentist tells you that you've started grinding your teeth in your sleep to a worrying degree. I do that, but I don't grind them. I kind of like clench them, and so like here on both sides of my cheeks, you can feel that I've actually been tensing my teeth basically. Given how nearly everything in your life has been feeling enormous and stressful lately, this doesn't come as a surprise to you. He suggests that you try to reduce your stress levels and fits you for a night guard. It feels awkward and too big for your mouth, and you feel embarrassed looking at your puffed out face in the mirror within. You finish up the appointment in a hurry and leave about half an hour overdue for meeting your always punctual brother in the parking lot. See, they tried to fit me with a night guard. Now, unfortunately, the dentists in the UK really love rinsing your wallet dry, especially if you don't have any sort of certificate to say that you can get a discount on anything. He put the order through, and he said if you don't want to do it, then you're just basically going to have to call up and say that you can't do it. So obviously, literally, the moment I got home the same day, I called up and said, look, I don't want it, because it was about 200 plus money, and I don't have that kind of money. But what I do have is like gum guards that you get from like Sports Direct or something like that. If you just pop those in, they work just the same and a hell of a lot cheaper. But obviously it depends, because like, yes, you do feel a bit like your mouth is sort of like pushed itself forward, and it does feel a bit weird. But if it helps you, then Do you see what I'm saying? It's better to go through the embarrassment and come out on the better end than just continuing to suffer. Finish up as quickly as possible and leave the building to scan the parking lot for your brother's car, but you don't see his old Civic anywhere. You pass by a blue Camaro and jump as it beeps at you, causing you to jump in surprise. It takes you a moment to realise it, but it's Malcolm in the driver's seat. You hop in the passenger seat and compliment him on his new ride, and he mentioned that it's a perk of a promotion he's recently obtained at work. He starts telling you about how much more money he's making, how his career is really taking off, and how he's starting to look at houses with his wife soon. You clutch the bag containing the night guard in your hand and feel yourself clench your teeth as you think of your crummy apartment and how long it's been since you've been able to take a day off of work without having to worry about making ends meet. He's only 2 years older than you, and it feels like he's eons ahead of you in every other aspect of your lives. So, he asks, how did your apartment go? Did you get drilled full of holes or what? A sense of shame creeps over you. Laugh about your dorky night guard with your brother. Tell him about the night guard and why you need it. Oh, how did your appointment go? Sorry, I thought that said apartment for some reason. Lie, tell him it was a routine cleaning, and tell him about your tooth grinding problem, but not the stress causing it. Okay, that's the thing, because like for ages after me like this, I can relate to it. Not specifically about dentistry, but like ages after me and my first boyfriend broke up. Bearing in mind, it's coming up to 3 years since me and my first boyfriend broke up. And so I was like alone for like 2 years, and for whatever reason, like I never, like maybe for the first 6 months after we broke up, I was keeping in contact with him. But then after that, I just could not be bothered. I didn't want anything to do with him, and I still don't. There's a very small occasions that he will try and contact me, and I'm like, look, go away. But like, I do not care for you anymore, like go away. And I think in the last conversation that we had, he got the gist of it, because I was drunk at the time, and I literally said to him like, look, you're none of my concern. That was it. But basically, for about a good year and a half, I would say, there would be occasions where a conversation between me and him would pass through. Now, since obviously I have been with my new boyfriend, I've obviously told my ex that I am with someone new. So I kind of do hope that that is one of the reasons why my ex will stay away from me this time. Basically, during those every now and then conversations through that year and a half, he would obviously pop up to me and be like, hey, how you doing? Just checking up on me and stuff like that. That I was cool with. But what I wasn't okay with was that one of the times he did pop up to me, he made a dig at me. Basically, he was just like, oh, how are you? Like, what are you doing? How's your job? And obviously, I don't work properly, but I do YouTube. And because it's really going somewhere, like my subscribers are going up, I feel more obliged to put all my effort into doing my YouTube channel. So obviously, that's what I've been doing for God knows how long. And he made a dig at me, saying something along the lines of, oh, where do you work now? Do you work in like Tesco's or B&M's or Home Bargains or something like that? B&M's and Home Bargains are like a discount store. Where else did he say? Oh, or like a cinema or something like that. And I literally said back to him, I don't appreciate how low you think I am. Full stop. And he tried passing it off as a joke, as like, oh, don't worry, I'm just pulling your leg, blah 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 blah. And I was like, no, sorry, I don't take that. Like, yeah, okay, maybe in the first year, if we were still together, as being the naive 17-year-old that I was, took every sort of like dig and poke that he did at me. But now I don't stand for that. And like, because I genuinely think that a lot of what he was saying to me in our first year of our relationship is one of the reasons why my depression was just like, hey, I'm still here. Do you know what I mean? But obviously, being since on my medication, I feel so much more confident in myself. And I'm not saying that medication's going to cure you, because no. Depression isn't something that can be miraculously cured just with taking a few pills. I don't even know if there is a cure for depression, to be quite honest with you. Like, I've technically had depression since I was about 13. I am now 23, which, by the way, my birthday was yesterday. So that's 10 years of depression. Whoa, that's 10 years of depression. Jesus, that flew by. To be fair, I'm going to say, tell him about the night card and why you need it. Tell him about the tooth grinding problem, but not the stress causing it. Let's go with this, because I don't know what my brother's like, or this brother's like. The dentist said I'm apparently grinding my teeth too much when I sleep. Oh, Malcolm replies, been stressed out lately, kiddo. Oh, I don't like that. Yeah, because those kind of little jabs at someone, especially when they've got mental health conditions, can actually cause a lot more of an issue than you realise. That's why a lot of people tend to say, think before you speak. And that's something my ex never did. And to be quite fair, you know, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like one of the things, I don't resent him for it. Like, I've forgiven and forgotten him. Like, do you know what I mean? But it's a lot of the things that he has said to me have stuck to me even like now. Like, there was one of the things that he brought up in an argument that we once had. He said, it's always about you, isn't it? In every sentence you say, you always got I in there. And that's why I'm always really now like on edge and kind of scared whenever I'm texting someone and I've put I in the sentence. Even now, I am aware that I'm talking about myself, and so now I'm a bit like, oh, I'm talking too much about myself rather than getting on with the game, which, to be fair, yes, I am doing. But it's stuff like that, like, you don't know what sticks with a person, even well after you've gone out of their life. It's just, people do genuinely need to, like, think before they speak if they're talking to someone who has mental health. And another thing he's done as well was he blamed my mental health for the reason our relationship wasn't working. And that killed. Like, that actually killed me, because it was like, I didn't decide to have depression, alright? You know, it's not something I was just like, you know, born and gone, I'll have depression when I'm 13. Like, it doesn't work that way. If I had a light switch for my depression, I would have it off completely, because then I wouldn't have to worry about medication and whatever. Deciding that you don't really want to go into it, you tell him that you don't think that's the case, and it's probably just a random thing. He doesn't pry further, and instead begins reminiscing with you about the time you chipped a baby tooth because he accidentally knocked you over once. You go out for dinner and catch up on things, but you still feel somewhat distracted by the gnawing anxiety in the back of your mind. Though you enjoy your brother's company, you still feel like you want nothing more than to go home and hide from the world tonight. It becomes hard for you to try to stuff all your horrible feelings down and go emotionless when someone like the dentist can see a fraction of what goes on inside your head. It leaves you feeling embarrassed and weak, and you hate yourself for feeling that way. You wonder if you're really fooling anyone into thinking you're a normal person, and then you wonder if your brother knows and is hanging out with you out of pity tonight. After he drops you off back at your apartment, you throw the night guard out. You can't stand to even look at the thing. Okay, fair enough. I can understand it's like really bothering you that your dentist is giving you something, and you think that they're getting an insight inside your head. You're throwing a piece of help away. That's it. Maybe it's a bit harder for someone who doesn't have mental health, but I understand that feeling of like the most slightest little bit of evidence. That's it. Your whole mental health is like, boom. Do you see what I'm saying? But even if it's subtle and it helps, take it. Because in the long run, that could really help you. I wouldn't have, to be fair, what I wouldn't have done, I wouldn't have thrown it away. I would have put it in my bathroom and put it in the cabinet or something like that. So I know it's there when I'm ready to use it. When I've accepted the fact that I'm grinding my teeth at night because of my stress, because of my depression. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like House of Cards, really. It's a dry Sunday morning. You'll grab your morning coffee and scoot your rapidly growing kitten out of your office chair despite her protests. Sit down at your desk to check your email. A new message pops up in your inbox almost as soon as you do. It's from Amanda, and you remember your meeting in the cafe and awkwardly bringing up your feelings to her. Subject: hey buddy. Body: hey, sorry it's been a few weeks. I meant to get this to you sooner, but it took me a while to get a hold of my folks back home. Dad told me to say hi, by the way. Anyway, I remembered what we talked about last time I saw you, and I hope you aren't insulted, but I asked my mum for the number for her therapist. Don't worry, I didn't tell her who it was for. I think she's worried about me now, though. Anyway, the number is... It's a really good office. You should look into it. Talking to someone never hurts. If you're worried about money, don't be. They're one of the few that has a really good sliding scale fee system. One won't charge you what you can't afford. I hope you're feeling better. It was really nice seeing you again. A. It's still early enough that you could call and make an appointment today. Your kitten curls up on your lap as you consider what to do. I personally, again, this is like the whole gum guard thing. It is subtle. Well, this really isn't. It does say what this is for, but it is help. And I would say to call them, even if it's, well, I don't know what country this is based in, but in the UK you'd be on a waiting list. You wouldn't just call up and get an appointment straight away unless it's urgent. Like if you're literally on the edge of like committing suicide, then you'd be like that for an appointment, which is kind of really sad. Like, you have to be on the brink of killing yourself to actually like go to talk to someone. That doesn't make any sense. But I would say to call them. And there was something else I was about to say. Oh yeah, charging. The problem here is that when you're 18 plus in the UK, you start paying for therapy and dentistry. Again, I don't know what country this is in, but any therapy for anybody that's 18 and older, you have to pay for it. And again, because obviously they're dealing with mental health issues, yeah, they won't charge you for what you can't afford. But it's usually quite expensive to be in the first place. So it's kind of really difficult. So they're basically like getting money out of your illness in a way. So number one, we can't do, which is call the therapist number you're looking forward to the help you think they can offer. 2, try your luck and call the number, even though the mere thought of talking to someone makes you anxious. She cared enough to send it to you after all. 3, sleep on it and see how you're feeling in the morning. You're not keen on the idea at all, but you don't want to disappoint Amanda. Or 4, close the email without thinking more of it. This has been embarrassing enough already. No. Let's go with 3. The thought of picking up the phone and calling someone about this right now is overwhelming. Sure, you're having a hard time lately and have motivation issues, but are you really in the need of therapy? Shouldn't you be able to just go over it yourself? What if they put you on medication that makes you feel like a zombie? What if you go and the therapist looks down on you? What will Alex think about this? Okay, a few points I can say about this. When you first get put on medication, yes, it might make you feel like a zombie. You might feel a bit tired, but that's your body adjusting to the medication that you put in. Because antidepressants isn't paracetamol. Like, when you're taking paracetamol, you just pop them back, boom, done, you carry on with the day. Antidepressants are actually properly working on a situation. That's why after you take them, especially for the very first time, or if your dosage has been put up, you might feel a bit like, ugh. But again, that's just your body adjusting to it. Also, therapists should never look down on you, ever, because then what's the point of being a therapist? Second of all, I do believe if you feel like a therapist is mocking you or looking down at you for your problems, you can report them and basically say, like, this particular therapist makes me feel like I'm worthless. Can you do something about them? And either they'll get fired or moved elsewhere. I'm hoping they'll get fired though. Yeah, so to be fair, all of this I can relate to. Like the whole medication thing, for me, it was like admitting defeat. But now I kind of can't see myself off my medication because I'm scared of what that result would be. Anyways, trying to think about all the things at once makes it feel like a very big deal. You decide to take your time to think on it. The rest of the day passes quickly, and that night you have a hard time trying to sleep because your brain is too busy thinking about all these things, and it's hard to get any rest that night. The next morning you check your email again with blurry ice sand a mewing kitten. What? I don't understand that. Okay. Amanda's email is still there, seemingly waiting for you. You are no more decided than you were yesterday. What now? 1. Just call already. It can't hurt to check it out. 2. Call after wrestling with it for a few minutes longer. 3. Don't call. This is way too much for you to be able to deal with right now. Wrestle with the idea a little bit longer. I would say do like flip a coin, but don't. Because if you do that, and you get the option of not calling, then you're not gonna call. That's the thing. Like, I feel like, me personally, I don't know how other people feel when it comes to their mental health, but when it comes to my mental health, like if I was to call up for a therapist or something like that, I would be very, very easily discouraged. I would feel very easily encouraged not to call, but feel very discouraged to call, if that makes any sense. So it's like the opposite of what it should be. You read through Amanda's email 2 or 3 times, then sit and stare at your computer for a while. While the memory of that uncomfortable conversation makes you feel newly embarrassed and self-conscious, part of you is also encouraged by the fact that she cared enough to get back to you at all. Sitting in front of your computer, you start to question things like whether or not Amanda said this number out of pity, or perhaps some sense of obligation after having listened to you. You question her motives and the validity of her concern, and whether or not you think seeking a therapist would even be helpful. To be fair, that I can also understand. When I first started therapy, I was like, how in the hell is this person going to help me? But the beauty of therapy is that it's a complete stranger. They know nothing about you. They will most likely never ever contact you outside of therapy unless it's urgent. And after your therapy, what are the likely chances you're ever going to bump into them again? Like, I had 3 therapists when I was a teenager, and I've not seen any of them since I needed it no more. Do you see what I'm saying? So therapy is kind of like, I don't know, I just find the beauty in therapy is the fact that it's a complete stranger who is trained to talk to you about this kind of stuff. And you have nothing to feel uncomfortable about, unless the therapist is making you feel that way. Then again, just go report them. They should be dealt with. Yeah, almost unconsciously, you reach for the phone, and before you realise what's happening, you're listening to the therapist's line ring. Good. Before you can bring yourself to hang up, you're listening to the slightly clinical but not unpleasant voice of the receptionist asking how she can help you. I'd like to make an appointment with the doctor. You manage to stammer out. The conversation is quick and not nearly as unpleasant as you were fearing, and quicker than you can say fewer than slip. You've scheduled an appointment. Quicker than you realise, appointment day rolls around. What do? Number 1 we can't do, which is go to the therapist's office. 2, head to the therapist's office even though you were totally unsure of what to expect. 3, sit in your car terrified and try and talk yourself into or out of going. 4, just the thought of going to your appointment ties your stomach in knots. You crawl back into bed. We're going. You have your first session with your new therapist, Dr. Susan Melville, a tall woman in her mid-40s with a disarming demeanour and patient eyes with the start of the slightest smile lines. She makes you feel completely fairly easy, which is a pleasant surprise after all your anxiety over the appointment. As you leave, you make a second appointment. You're still sceptical about all of this, but figure you might as well see where this goes. The hardest part, it seems, was taking the first step. You're still not sure if and how you're going to tell your family or your partner, but you figure you'll deal with that when the time comes. Either way, you're feeling relieved that you managed to see this through instead of being paralysed with worry over it. Even if nothing comes out of it, you did something you said you would instead of flaking out or running away. You're emotionally exhausted when you get home and collapse into bed. You sleep better that night than you have in a week. And you're not sure if it's because you were so tired when you got home, or if it's because of the therapist. When you go to a therapist for the first time and you talk to them, you're unloading a lot of things very unconsciously. So by the time you do get back home, you probably will feel very emotionally do you see what I'm saying? You were seeing a therapist even though you doubt anything she says can make you feel better. Yeah. Don't be too dismissal when it comes to therapy. It is early on a Wednesday morning. Lately you've developed a nasty habit of waking up 10-20 minutes before your alarm goes. Oh, I hate when that happens. And unfortunately today is no exception. You lie in bed, each minute ticking closer and closer to wake up time, and passing on a swelling wave of ever-encroaching dread. Sooner you would like, your alarm blares with caustic inevitability. You frantically pound the snooze button and then retreat under your blankets, as if the warmth of your comforter can shield you from the passage of time. You almost always have difficulty rising from bed, but today that simple task seems nothing short of Herculean, whatever that means. After several snooze cycles, you decide that you just can't deal with work today. You're incapable of even rousing yourself from bed, let alone going into work and having to force yourself through a work day. Not to mention, you've snoozed so many times that it would be impossible to make it in on time now. Anyways, what do you do? 1. Hop out of bed and start getting ready for work. You'll be late, but it's better than not going in at all. 2. Head into work, but that first option we can't do. 2. Head into work, at least you can leave early if it gets too unbearable. 3. Call your boss to tell him you're sick and won't be in today. I would say, again, being late is better than not showing up at all. And it's better to... Is it though? I know doing a no-show is completely unacceptable, but that's if you don't call in to say you were sick. Let's just head into work anyway. Okay, in spite of the fact that your body is actively fighting you literally every step of the way, you somehow manage to drag yourself out of bed and make your way to work. Surprisingly, you end up only being about 5 minutes late, and nobody seems to notice or care. Though when you woke up, the simple act of being even physically presentable at your job seemed like an impossibility, you were surprised at your own ability to push on through the day. While you were far from enjoying, or indeed even really coping with the dullness of your job today, you seem to have slipped into a trance-like state of automation, and time is nevertheless passing. Eventually, the end of the day rolls round and you head home, utterly exhausted, but at the same time, almost proud of yourself for having stuck it out. That in itself is progress, okay? Even if it's the most littlest thing, like getting yourself up out of bed, getting to work, doing work, and then coming home, it is progress. It is a sign of willing to help yourself out. So, I'm going to make this the last slide. So, it's 2 a.m. on a Sunday and you have work in the morning. You roll over to see the sickly green glow of the time displayed on your LED alarm clock and let out an exasperated sigh. You've been trying to fall asleep for over 3 hours now to no avail. Every time your head hits the pillow, you're overcome with anxious thoughts that wrap themselves around each other. Worries about your job led to worries about your future, led to worries about your very identity, and you're unable to shake them off long enough to doze off. Your eyes won't even stay shut as your mind races through imagined scenarios going horribly wrong, which you promptly attribute to your general worthlessness. I understand this. I did this a lot with my first relationship. But you know what? It's really funny. It's really simple, but it might actually help that if you're actually, up in bed at 2 a.m. or whatever, and there's a particular thought on your mind, get a pen and paper, write it down, either leave it there or throw it in the bin. That doesn't really matter. And then go back to sleep, or try to go back to bed, because you'll find that if you write something or talk to someone about it or whatever, once something else, whether it's living or not, is aware of the issue, you might find yourself feeling a little bit better. Again, the whole thing about furry friends, it's not necessarily an ear that can understand you, but it's an ear that listens. So just try it. Even if you think it's completely stupid, because even I used to think that. But then once you do it and you actually are like, oh, you know what, that kind of actually helps. Even if it's the most littlest bit, it might help you. You never know. Your thoughts run too fast for you to come to a satisfying conclusion on any one of them. Your room is completely silent, but the silence was given way to a loud static noise rattling around inside your head. Your heart beats loudly and you worry it's beating a little too fast. You worry that if you focus too strongly on your racing heart, you'll freak out hard enough that you'll have a heart attack. You have to be awake for work in a mere 8 hours. And you know that your work is so much worse on only a few hours sleep. What do? So the first 5 options we cannot do, which is 1, force yourself to go to sleep. 2, go to bed. It shouldn't be that hard. 3, just close your eyes and let it happen. Why won't your thoughts back off for 5 seconds? 4, snap out of it. What is wrong with you? Why can't you stop stressing out for 5 seconds? 5, you're probably going to go into work exhausted and fuck everything up and get fired. Or 6, go to your computer. Sleep is clearly not happening, no matter how long you lay there. Okay, so these seems to have changed. You're moderately depressed. You find it hard to focus on anything because you get physically and mentally exhausted very quickly. You are in therapy with a good counselor. You're doing cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, and they are starting to help. You are currently not taking any medication for your depression. Behavioral therapy is something that also might help. I'm not a therapist. I'm not trying to say that, oh yeah, let me cure your depression for you. No, it's a behavioral technique is you act on the way you think, right? So if you think a certain way, you start to behave that certain way. So if you think negatively all the time and that you are worthless and blah 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 blah, then naturally you're going to want to stay in bed because that's the most comfiest place a human can be. Now, if you start thinking to yourself, you know what, I'm a good person and I can get something done today, doesn't matter what that thing is, can be small, can be big, doesn't matter. And then once you get it done and realize how better you feel that you have got this thing done, you'll start to progress in that very small but positive way, and it's very effective, to be fair. So we're going to go onto one computer and then we are going to leave it there because I've been talking for 40 minutes and my throat is killing me. Right. So yeah, that's the second part of this done. Again, if you would like me to continue this sort of fiction game, like novel interactive game or whatever you would call it, then by all means do let me know down in the comments below and I will continue. Again, sorry for rambling so much about my experiences, but I'm only trying to not make you understand, but try to get you to understand of how I understand this. Again, everyone with depression or even just any mental health will experience something different each and every way. So yeah, then again, if you did like this video, please click that like button down below, and while you're there, please click the subscribe button so you're told when my next video has been uploaded. Bye.